I remember the way the fog draped over the forest road that night, curling around the tree trunks like smoke. The pale light of my car's headlights barely pierced the mist, casting long, trembling shadows that seemed almost alive. Every rustle of leaves, every whisper of wind, felt like it was speaking to me, calling my name in tones I couldn't place. The silence was heavy, pressing against my chest, broken only by the distant, irregular snapping of a branch. Though no one should have been there, my heart slowed, trying to convince me it was nothing, yet the static hum in the air made me doubt everything. That's when I saw it, a tall, shadowed shape standing just beyond the reach of my headlights, watching, waiting. I couldn't move. I couldn't look away. The fog thickened, swallowing the world around me, and a low, guttural sound rumbled somewhere in the darkness. I never should have opened the car door. It was the kind of evening that doesn't belong to any season. Too cold for spring, too still for autumn. The fog had come early tonight, a slow tide of gray swallowing the forest path ahead. Pines rose on both sides of me, tall and thin, their tips fading into the haze. They swayed, ever so slightly, though the air around me was still. No wind, no breath, just that strange, trembling motion, as if the trees themselves were listening. My boots sank into the damp soil, each step swallowed by the soft earth. A faint hum lingered, not in the air exactly, but in the quiet between each heartbeat. The forest smelled like wet bark and something faintly metallic, almost like rust, almost like blood. I told myself to keep walking. The path would lead out eventually. It always did. But halfway through the clearing, I heard it, a whisper. It was soft, so soft that for a moment, I thought it was just a fog brushing my ear. Then it came again, clearer this time. My name. I froze. The trees leaned closer, their trunks creaking softly as if straining to hear my reply. But I didn't move, didn't breathe. The whisper came again, drawn out, quiet, almost apologetic. I turned toward the sound, but it slipped to the other side, like a current moving just beyond reach. Every time I turned, it followed, never ahead, never behind, always beside me, always near enough to feel, but not to see. My hands were trembling before I noticed. I rubbed them together, but they stayed cold. The air pressed close against my skin, thick, damp, breathing. I could hear the pines shifting again, their branches brushing together with a slow rustle, like distant whispers answering each other. I whispered back, my voice small and cracked. "Who's there?" Nothing, only the faint drip of water falling from a branch, hitting the ground like a clock marking time. I walked faster, the fog deepening around me, turning the path to milk-white blur. My footsteps disappeared in it, swallowed before they even landed. Then a voice again, closer, not a whisper this time, a breath, drawn in beside my ear. I felt it before I heard it. My name, spoken a way only someone who knows you would say it. I spun around. The fog shifted with me, curling back like smoke disturbed by motion. No one there, only trees, only silence. But the forest wasn't silent anymore. It was humming again, low, almost electrical, like static running through the ground. Every pine along the path seemed to tremble in unison, a rhythm, a pulse. The whisper called again, softer now, farther away, leading, and I followed, because what else could I do? The path seemed to narrow as I walked. Branches brushed against my shoulders, leaving faint trails of cold dew across my skin. The smell of earth grew stronger, richer, darker, the kind of smell that rises from something long buried. My heartbeat slowed, matching the forest's rhythm. I couldn't tell if I was still walking or just drifting. Then the whisper stopped. Completely, the silence that followed was heavy enough to feel. It sat on my chest, pressed against my teeth. I looked around, fog, trees, the faint outline of the path, and realized I couldn't remember where I'd entered from. Every direction looked the same. Every shadow leaned the same way. I tried to call out again, but the air refused to carry my voice. It just dissolved into the mist, as though the forest had taken it for itself. And then, just when I thought it was over, something moved behind me, a slow step, wet leaves shifting under weight. I didn't turn. I couldn't. The breath brushed the back of my neck again, slow, deliberate, as if the whisper had returned, but closer now, close enough to feel its warmth, close enough to count its breaths against mine. And then, in a voice barely above the fog, "Keep walking." I blinked. The sound was gone. The weight behind me lifted. Only the path remained, long, pale, stretching forward into the dark. I took a step, then another. The trees swayed again, but now it felt like they were bowing, or watching, or warning. The whisper didn't come back, but its echo followed me all the way out. And even now, when I close my eyes, I can still hear it, just beyond the edge of thought, waiting for me to listen again. The fog never lifted. Even when morning came, the light didn't change. It only dimmed the shadows enough to see that they were still moving. The forest felt smaller now, tighter. Every tree leaned inward, their bark slick with moisture, their roots tangled like veins under pale skin. I followed the path I thought was mine, but the ground had shifted overnight. The earth felt soft beneath my boots, wet, uneven, as if something had been crawling just below the surface. My breath came in faint clouds. Each one hung in front of me for a moment too long, as though the air itself didn't want to let it go. And somewhere ahead, a light, faint, white, barely a glimmer through the mist. At first, I thought it was the moon, but the moon doesn't move that low. It flickered, and then it blinked. I stopped walking. The fog pressed close, curling around me like fabric drawn over a body. The silence felt heavy, the kind that builds pressure in your ears. Somewhere between one heartbeat and the next, I realized I wasn't alone. Something was watching me. I couldn't see it yet, but I could feel it. That faint hum again, the one that lives just behind the silence. It rose and fell with my breathing, as if matching me on purpose. The pale light shimmered again, a tiny reflection of something wet. 2 points now, small, round, set at the height of a person's face. Eyes. I blinked. They vanished. I blinked again. Closer now. Every time I looked away, even just to breathe, they were nearer, slipping through the fog with no footsteps. No sound at all. The trees around me seemed to tilt. Their shadows stretched too long across the mist, bending in strange directions, like the forest itself was trying to hide whatever stood between them. I told myself it was a trick of light, moisture, exhaustion, but my body didn't believe me. My pulse stumbled, fighting to stay calm as something cold traced the back of my neck. The air shifted again, a slow inhale that wasn't mine. I turned. Nothing. Only the path. Only the gray. But when I looked forward again, the eyes were gone, in their place. A darker patch of fog, taller than me, still as stone. I stared. It didn't move, didn't sway with the wind, because there was no wind. And yet, somewhere deep inside that pale blur, something shifted. A faint ripple, like breath pushing through the mist. I whispered, barely moving my lips. "Were you?" The fog seemed to listen. And then, for the briefest moment, it smiled. Not with a mouth, not with shape, but with the movement of shadows, pulling back, revealing nothing but that same cold emptiness. I took a step backward. The earth gave way underfoot, soft and wet, like sinking into something that had been waiting. A faint rustle echoed behind me. Then another, leaves brushing against each other. Even though there was no breeze, when I turned again, the forest had changed. Every tree around me leaned toward the center, toward me. Their bark glistened in the faint light, as though sweating or weeping. I tried to focus on the ground on the path, but the fog blurred everything into one long smear of gray. And then the eyes again, dozens now, not close enough to touch, but near enough to count, each pair flickering softly, a pale, wet light blinking in unison. I blinked once. They shifted forward. I blinked twice, closer still. My chest tightened, breath short and shallow. I tried to hold my eyes open, but they burned, tears stinging from the cold. When I finally blinked again, they stopped, all of them, perfectly still, perfectly silent. For a long moment, nothing moved, and then, slowly, the nearest pair began to fade, not away, but through the fog, like sinking back into water. One by one, the others followed, each set dissolving into mist. until the forest was empty again. Only the faint hum remained. Low, constant, vibrating through the soil beneath my feet. I looked up. The fog parted just enough for a sliver of light. Not sun, not moon, just a pale gleam hovering in the distance. It pulsed once like a heartbeat, then disappeared. The silence returned, thicker than before. I stood there for a long time, eyes open, afraid to blink again, because somewhere out there, behind the trees, I knew they were still watching, waiting. And the mist wasn't finished with me yet. The road cuts through the forest like a scar, narrow, uneven, damp from the night's fog. My headlights catch the mist as it curls upward, turning the air into a slow-moving blur. The trees press close on both sides, thin pines with black bark and branches that tangle together, like ribs closing in around a body. The tires hum against the asphalt. The sound feels steady, safe, but under it, there's something else. A faint rhythm, a second pattern of movement, faster, lighter, footsteps. I glance at the side mirror. Only darkness. The branches flicker past in streaks of gray and black. I tell myself it's the tires, the wind, anything but what it sounds like. Then I hear again, closer this time, running, keeping pace with the car. I grip the steering wheel tighter, my fingers slick with sweat. The forest leans in, trunks flashing past like vertical bars. It feels like driving through a cage. I press the accelerator just a little. The footsteps match. Faster, louder, keeping rhythm with the car. There's nothing on the road, nothing beside it, just that constant, impossible sound. Someone running through the woods, matching every move I make. The window hums softly as I lower an inch. Cold air slips in. It smells of wet soil and pine sap. And underneath, something faintly sweet. Rotten. I listen. No birds. No insects. Only the hum of the engine and the steady beat of those footsteps following me through the dark. I turn the headlights up. They pierce the fog just far enough to reveal the road ahead. But the trees on either side are still shadows, still moving. For a second, I think I see something between them, a shape keeping pace beside me. Its movement too smooth, too effortless. Each stride silent, like it isn't touching the ground at all. I blink and it's gone. My pulse is in my throat now, a steady vibration against the silence. The forest rustles again. Branches twist. Leaves shiver, not from wind, but from something brushing past them. It's closer to the road now. I can hear it breathing. Soft, wet, like air drawn through teeth. I want to stop, but the thought of standing still here, in this narrow stretch of fog and trees, feels worse than whatever's running beside me. So I keep going. Faster. The car shudders as the road bends. The forest thickens, closing in tight enough that branches scrape along the roof, tracing thin. High sounds like whispers. I glance to the side again. Nothing but mist, but I can feel it, pacing me, watching. My window fogs from inside. I wipe it with my sleeve, and for just a second, there is something reflected in the glass. A face, pale, featureless, pressed against the other side of the window, keeping perfect speed with the car. I blink, and the reflection is gone. The footsteps fade. The forest stills. The only sound now is the low hum of the tires and the uneven rhythm of my breathing. I slow the car a little, just enough to listen. The silence stretches long and thin. For a moment, I think it's over. Then a rustle, farther back this time, in the trees. Something moving through the brush, circling behind me. The headlights catch a glimmer between the trunks. 2 points of light. Too high to be eyes. Too low to be stars. They shift as I watch, bending slightly, like the trees themselves are leaning to look back. The road curves again. The light disappears. I drive faster now, heart steady but heavy. The forest begins to thin. The fog starts to fade. But as the trees fall away behind me, the rustling follows, softer now, fading with distance, like something running out of breath. I keep driving until I see the sky open ahead, gray and pale with morning. Only then do I look in the mirror again. The road is empty, but the tree still moves, branches trembling, as though something stands just beyond them, watching me leave. And as the last turn disappears behind me, I realize the rustling hasn't stopped. It's inside the car now, somewhere just behind the seat. Slow, careful, breathing in sync with mine. The fog was thicker here, heavy enough to taste. It clung to the air like damp wool, muffling every sound except my own steps. Somewhere ahead, through the gray, a shape began to form. A cabin, small, crooked, half swallowed by the trees. The roof sagged under years of rain. The windows were black and hollow. Even the air around it felt different, dense, unmoving, like the world was holding its breath. I don't remember deciding to go closer. I just did. The ground softened beneath my boots, the earth giving way to planks half buried in moss. The front steps creaked before I even touched them, as if reacting to memory, not weight. The door hung open just enough for the fog to slip through. It swayed when I reached for it, slowly, like it had been waiting for my hand. Inside, the air was colder. The walls leaned inward, their paint peeled into gray curls that fluttered when I passed. A faint hum filled the space. Not quite a sound, more like pressure behind the ears. It came and went in time with my breathing. The floor groaned underfoot, old boards flexing. But after a few steps, I realized the rhythm was wrong. Something else was moving too. Each time I shifted my weight, there was another creak, delayed, offbeat, as if the floor was responding to more than one set of feet. I stopped. It didn't. The fog slipped to the open door, curling across the floor like a slow tide. The light dimmed until only outlines remained. The door, a table, a broken chair. The smell of rot settled in, wood and old water, something faintly sour beneath it. I whispered, without meaning to, "Is someone here?" The cabin answered with silence. Thick, complete. Then a shift, somewhere near the back wall. A low, dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled across the floor. I turned toward it, every part of me cold. The fog stirred. Something darker moved within it. The floor let out another creak, then another, then a breath. Not mine. It came from the far corner, deep and slow, shaking the air in the room. The sound crawled through me, thick with something that wasn't human. It wasn't a growl exactly, but close, low enough to feel in the ribs. My hand brushed the nearest wall for balance. The wood was damp, warm in places, like something had been pressed against it. Recently, the air pulsed again, that same slow exhale. Closer now. I could hear the board straining beneath it. Whatever it was large, heavy, and still hidden behind the fog. I stepped back. The door behind me creaked softly in the draft. A whisper of cold air slipped through the gap, curling around my ankles. The growl deepened. Not angry, warning, possessive. Something in me understood what it meant. Leave. But I didn't. Not yet. I looked toward the shadowed corner again, where the light refused to reach. For a moment, I thought I saw movement. Something tall hunched, its outline trembling through the haze. It tilted its head, a shape of suggestion more than sight, and I felt it looking back. The weight of its gaze pressed through the fog, settling against my chest. My pulse thudded loud enough to echo in my ears. Then the air shifted. The fog moved backward, as though drawn by a breath, and the growl stopped. Everything went still. The hum faded. The walls seemed to exhale, and the silence returned, thicker than before. I stepped back once, then again, until my heel touched the doorway. The cold outside felt sharp, real. The kind of cold that doesn't follow you. I didn't look back as I left. Didn't run. Didn't breathe until the cabin disappeared behind the trees. Only when I reached the road again did I hear it. Faint and low, carried through the fog. The same creaking floorboards. Slow, measured, moving closer to the door. Then nothing, only silence, and the feeling that the cabin was listening. The night had thinned into that strange hour before dawn, when the air feels held between worlds. Not night, not morning. Mist hung low, coiling between the trunks like smoke that had forgotten where it came from. The forest was quiet, too quiet. Even the branches seemed to hold still, as though waiting. My breath came out in thin clouds, drifting into the fog and disappearing. I followed the faint trail of the path, the dirt slick with dew, each step sinking into the cold earth. That's when I saw it. A silver light flickering ahead. Not bright, not steady, just enough to catch on the mist, turning it into ribbons of shifting glow. It pulsed once, then again, almost like it was breathing. I thought it might be the moon, but the sky was empty, a sheet of dark pressed flat above the trees. The light moved, slowly, side to side, like something pacing. I stopped walking. The air felt heavy, weighted with moisture, and something else, a faint hum beneath the silence. As my eyes adjusted, the glow grew clearer. It wasn't floating. It had shape, a body, an animal, maybe tall as my chest. Its outline silver against the fog, every movement fluid and soundless. The light clung to it, not from outside but from within, like it was made of the same pale shimmer that touched the air. I couldn't tell what it was. Its body was wrong somehow, limbs too long, neck too still, like it had been built from memory, not flesh. It turned its head. 2 eyes met mine through the mist. Reflections, not of light, but of awareness. Cold, measured, unblinking. The kind of gaze that sees through you and then decides to keep looking anyway. My chest tightened. I wanted to move, to step back, but my body stayed locked. The creature didn't approach. It just watched. Every breath of fog between us seemed to bend around it, like the air didn't dare touch its surface. And then I heard it, breathing. Not mine. Deep, drawn in, from somewhere close enough that I could feel the rhythm of it on my skin. But the creature's chest wasn't moving. Its form stayed perfectly still. The sound came from beside me, just outside my vision. A slow inhale, then silence, then another. I turned my head, expecting to see someone standing there, but there was only fog, thick, still, and yet the breath continued, soft, measured, matching mine, beat for beat. My throat went dry. The air around me felt too warm, like someone standing too close in a small room. I whispered, a word that wasn't really a word, just sound, cracked and small. The light flickered again. The creature shifted its weight, one long limb pressing into the dirt with slow, deliberate grace. Its eyes glowed brighter for a moment, then dimmed, as if it were thinking. The breathing stopped. The silence that followed felt wrong, like the forest was waiting for something that didn't come. I blinked, and the creature was gone. Only the mist remained, swirling where it had stood. The pale light lingered in the air a few seconds longer, then bled away into gray. I waited, listening. Nothing, not even my own heartbeat at first. And then, faintly, from somewhere deeper between the trees, the sound of branches brushing together. A rustling that didn't fade, just circled, moving slow, wide. I turned, trying to catch the light again, but there was nothing to see, only fog and the faint echo of breath that didn't belong to me. I don't know how long I stood there. Minutes, maybe hours. When the first trace of dawn finally touched the treetops, I saw something pale press into mud at my feet. A print, too long to be human, too narrow to be an animal I knew. The edges still glowed faintly, as if whatever left it hadn't gone far. I stepped back, watching the mist curl into the impression, and for a moment, it pulsed again. That same silver glow, alive, waiting. The wind moved then, a rare, small breath through the trees. It carried the scent of wet bark and something faintly metallic. When I looked up, the forest was empty again. The fog had begun to rise, swallowing the trail behind me. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the light hadn't gone. It had simply learned how to hide. The fog hadn't lifted since dawn. It rolled low across the hills, soft and colorless, like the earth had forgotten where its edges were. The air felt heavier than before, thick with the scent of moss and rain-soaked leaves. Every step left a small imprint, water filling it slowly behind me. The forest was quiet, but not peaceful. The kind of quiet that feels like something's listening. Then it came, a sound that didn't belong to the living world. Long, low, rising from far beyond the mist. A howl. It stretched through the air until the trees trembled. I felt it move through me, like a note played deep in the bones. For a moment, I thought it was the wind. But wind doesn't carry grief or hunger. The hills answered it. A faint echo bending between the trunks, breaking apart, then fading. My chest tightened. Every instinct told me to turn back, but I didn't. I started walking toward it. The path narrowed, roots twisting through the soil like veins. Branches reached low, scraping against my sleeves as if trying to hold me still. I could hear my own breath, shallow and uneven, mixing with the faint hum of insects hiding beneath the bark. Then another howl, closer this time. The sound crawled down from the ridge ahead, sliding through the fog, curling around the trunks. I couldn't tell how far it was, or if it was moving. Each rise of the call felt layered, more than one voice woven together, rising and falling like a single living thing. I stepped over a fallen branch. The bark beneath my fingers was damp and soft. It felt warm. When I looked down, I saw faint smears of something dark, not blood, but something that shimmered faintly, like oil in a puddle. I wiped my hand against my coat. It left a shadow there that didn't fade. The mist shifted. Shapes began to move within it. Not people, not animals either. Just darkness, bending the light in strange ways. Each time I blinked, the shapes were somewhere else. Closer, then gone again. I froze, listening. The forest had gone still. Even the air stopped moving. Then a soft rustle. To my left, then another. Behind me, something circling. No footsteps. Just that whisper of movement, like cloth brushing against leaves. The howl came again, so near now that the ground seemed to pulse beneath my boots. It wasn't angry. It wasn't calling for help. It was searching, and in a strange way. It felt like it already knew I was here. I stepped forward, one slow breath at a time. The mist grew brighter in patches, pale light flickering between the trees, as if the fog itself had veins of silver. The shadows swayed, stretching tall, then curling low to the earth. Every time the howl rose, they paused, listening, responding. I whispered, though I didn't mean to. "Who's there?" The words slipped out like steam, gone before I could stop them. Something moved. A figure just beyond the nearest tree. Its outline wavered, a silhouette half hidden by mist. Then it tilted its head. The same slow motion I'd seen before, back when the pale light had watched me. It didn't come closer. It just stared, unmoving, as the fog crawled across its shape. My throat burned with the urge to call out again, but the air felt thick, like breathing through cloth. Another howl tore through the silence. Not from the hills this time. From somewhere deep inside the forest. Right ahead, the figure vanished. The mist broke apart, spinning like torn fabric. And for the briefest second, I saw something pass between the trees. Long, lean, its back arched, limbs too many, too fluid. It glowed faintly, the same ghostly shimmer that lived in the fog. I stumbled back, but the earth seemed to tilt beneath me, pulling me forward again. The air carried a strange hum, like the vibration of a low note. It filled my head, drowning out everything else. When it stopped, so did the forest. No wind, no insects, not even my own breath. Only silence, dense and absolute. Then one last howl, farther now, receding into the distance. Longer, sadder, like a call answered. And then gone. The fog began to thin. The shapes melted away into the gray. When the first hint of daylight touched the branches, the forest looked ordinary again. Just wet ground, empty trails, and the quiet hum of morning. But as I turned to leave, I saw something glinting between the roots. A small piece of bark, peeled back from a tree. Underneath, a mark burned into the wood. A spiral, carved deep, edges still warm to touch. I stood there for a long time, watching the fog fade from the hills, waiting for the howl to return. It never did, but the silence that replaced it felt like a promise, one that hadn't been broken yet. The forest had grown colder after dusk, the kind of cold that doesn't come from air, but from something watching. Mist hung low between the trunks. Every few steps, it curled around my ankles, soft, weightless, but it lingered too long, like it didn't want to let go. I kept walking. The trail was narrow, lined with wet leaves, their scent sharp and sweet with decay. Somewhere in the distance, a branch cracked, but the rest of the woods stayed still. No birds, no wind, Just me. And then the crunch. Light, deliberate. Behind me. I froze. The fog pressed closer, and the air thickened in my chest. I turned, slowly. Nothing. The trees stared back, silent and endless. The path behind me was empty. I waited, long enough that the silence began to hum. Then I moved again. One step, then another. Crunch. The same rhythm. Perfectly matched. I stopped. So did it. I could feel my heartbeat echoing in the stillness. Steady, too loud, like it didn't belong to me anymore. My breath fogged the air. It hung there, then vanished into the dark. I started walking faster. Leaves shifted beneath my boots, wet twigs breaking softly under weight. The footsteps followed, always a few paces behind. Never closer, never farther. Each step carried a delay, just enough to remind me it wasn't an echo. I tried to convince myself it was the wind. Maybe a deer, maybe nothing, but the air was too still for that. Even the trees seemed to be holding their breath. I glanced over my shoulder again. The fog had thickened. Shapes seemed to move inside it. Thin, tall, shifting as if the mists were alive. I whispered, without meaning to, "Is someone there?" No answer, only the soft rustle of leaves settling back into place. A faint metallic scent drifted past me, like rain on stone. Cold, familiar, but wrong. I felt it then, a presence at my back. Not touching, not seen, but heavy, like a thought too close to the skin. The crunch came again, closer now. I turned fast, expecting movement, but the path was empty, only fog, drifting slowly over the ground, reaching out like pale hands. My mouth had gone dry. Every breath scraped the inside of my throat. I thought about running, but even the idea felt dangerous, like sudden movement would invite something to follow harder. So I kept walking, slow, careful. Each step made the same soft sound, and each time, something behind me mirrored it. It wasn't random. It wasn't the woods. It was me, copied, repeated, a reflection without a body. I reached a clearing, a small one, with a fog thin just enough to see the outline of trees circling in silence. I stopped at the center, waited. My breath trembled, barely holding shape in the cold. The footsteps stopped too. I listened. The forest stretched wide and hollow around me. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then a single step, slow, drawn out. Behind me, the air thinned. My body went still. Something was there, close enough to reach out. I didn't. I couldn't. The mist shifted at the edge of my vision, and I saw the faintest outline, a shape moving with the rhythm of my breath. It leaned forward as I exhaled, tilting its head the way a person would when they're curious. I tried not to blink. The moment I did, the shape vanished. The forest returned to silence, too complete, too empty. I stood there until the fog began to thin, until the outline of the path appeared again. When I finally turned to leave, I noticed something in the soil where I'd been standing, a trail of prints. Fresh, clear, mine, and beside each one a second, slightly deeper, pressed just behind the heel. I followed them back down the path. They stretched into fog ahead, fading one by one until only mine remained. The forest stayed quiet. The steps didn't return. But every few moments, when the leaves shifted, I felt it, that same rhythm, that same unseen weight, matching my pace, perfectly. And somewhere deep in the trees, I could almost hear it breathing. Not close, not far, just there, waiting. It was late afternoon when I found the stream, a thin ribbon of water, winding quietly through the forest. The air was cool, heavy with the scent of moss and wet bark. The fog hadn't lifted all day. It clung low to the ground, blurring the edges of everything, the trees, the stones, even me. I knelt beside the water. It was clearer than I expected. So still it almost didn't look real. For a moment, I just stared. My reflection looked back, muted, distorted slightly by the ripples. The pale light caught my face, made it almost colorless. But the longer I watched, the less it felt like I was looking at myself. The stream whispered against the rocks, steady and soft. Each sound seemed to pulse with the same rhythm as my breath. Then something shifted. My reflection blinked, but I hadn't. I froze. The air thickened, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. I leaned closer, my pulse echoing behind my ears. The reflection stared back, unblinking now, eyes too pale, too still. I whispered, barely a sound. "Hello?" No answer, only the faint movement of water, curling around a fallen branch. I waited for my reflection to move again, to catch up, to be me, but it didn't. It just watched. Patient, curious. The longer I stayed, the more I noticed. Its face wasn't matching mine anymore. Its mouth was slightly open, as if it were about to speak. Its eyes wider, the kind of wide that looked wrong on a human face. A breeze passed through the trees. It brushed against my neck, cool and damp, and I shivered. For a heartbeat, the reflection smiled, not with warmth, but with knowledge, like it understood something I didn't. I stumbled back, water splashing at my hands. The image rippled apart, vanishing into silver threads. When the stream settled again, I saw only the water, empty. I should have walked away. I should have left right then. But something kept me there, a pull low in my chest. I crouched again, slowly, watching the surface. The reflection returned. Still pale, still waiting. But now, it wasn't matching my movements at all. When I leaned forward, it leaned back. When I turned my head, it turned the other way, perfectly reversed. Perfectly wrong. I reached toward it, fingers trembling. The surface shivered at my touch, cold biting up my arm like static. And for a split second, the reflection moved faster than I did, pressing its hand against mine from beneath the surface. The water didn't break. It felt like glass between us. I couldn't breathe. Its skin looked paler than before, almost transparent. I could see faint blue lines running beneath it, like veins of frost. Then it smiled again, the same knowing smile, and the water began to hum, low, vibrating through the ground. Through me, I pulled back sharply. The reflection stayed, hand still raised, face still calm. But its eyes followed as I stood, not with movement, with awareness. The forest had grown quieter. The fog pressed tighter around the trees, thick enough that I couldn't see more than a few steps ahead. And yet I felt seen, completely. I turned to leave. But before I did, I looked one last time. The reflection was standing now, not kneeling as I had been. It looked taller, straighter, its face sharp and still. The water didn't ripple. It looked like glass again, a perfect mirror. Only, it wasn't reflecting the forest anymore. Just me, and behind me, something darker, a shadow stretching longer than my own. It didn't move, didn't change. It just waited at the edge of the stream, reaching toward me as the fog swallowed the light. I stepped back, my foot breaking a twig. The sound cracked through the silence. And in that same instant, the reflection blinked. Once. When I looked again, it was gone. The water ran smooth and empty, as if it had never been still at all. I turned and walked away, heart slow, breath shallow. But as I reached the tree-line, a faint ripple touched the surface of the stream, as though something beneath had finally moved. And though I never looked back, I could feel it, my reflection, still standing there, watching, waiting for the water to clear. The road was empty. A single strip of cracked asphalt cutting through the forest. Twilight had faded hours ago, but the fog still clung low, thick silver, alive. The air smelled like damp earth and cold metal. My headlights barely reached 10 feet ahead. The beam swallowed whole by the mist. I slowed the car, the tires crunching softly against gravel. Something felt wrong. The forest pressing on both sides, branches bending, as if leaning closer. Listening. Then I saw it, a shape at the far edge of the light. Tall, still, perfectly centered in the middle of the road. I couldn't tell what it was at first. Too dark, too sharp around the edges to be human, but not enough to be anything else. I stopped the car. The engine hummed, low and uneasy. The fog rolled across the hood, curling like smoke. The figure didn't move, didn't sway, didn't breathe. It just waited. My fingers tightened on the steering wheel. I blinked once, trying to clear the haze from my vision, and when I opened my eyes, it was closer, Only a few feet now, standing at the edge of the light. My breath caught. I hadn't seen it move. It hadn't walked. It had just shifted. The shape was clearer now, tall and narrow, arms hanging too long. Its outline soft and uneven, like the fog had molded itself into a person. I felt something in my chest twist. Not panic. Not yet. Just a wrongness. The air inside the car grew heavy. My breath fogged the windshield. And beneath it all, there was a faint hum. Low, constant, vibrating through the steering column. I looked down. My hands were trembling. When I looked back up, the shadow was gone. The road was empty. I leaned forward, searching the fog. Nothing but pale light and drifting mist. For a moment, I almost believed I'd imagined it, that maybe it was a trick of light, a branch, a thought. Then something brushed against the back window, a soft drag, like fingertips tracing the glass. I froze, didn't breathe, didn't move. The hum grew louder. It wasn't the car anymore. It was in the air, just behind me. Slowly I turned. There was nothing there, just a blur of fog against the taillights. But deep inside it, barely visible, something darker was standing still, watching. I blinked again, and it was closer, right outside the glass now. I couldn't see its face. There was no face, just depth, a darker dark, where a face should be. I reached for the ignition, hands shaking so hard the keys slipped. For a second, the headlights flickered. The forest seemed to inhale, and in that brief flash, I saw it clearly. The figure was leaning forward, its head tilted, as though trying to understand me. No eyes, no mouth, just a faint impression of a person, staring through the fog. The light steadied again, and it was gone. The forest was still, the mist unmoving. I sat there for a long time, the hum fading slowly back into silence. Even the trees seemed to relax. Then, without meaning to, I looked into the rear-view mirror, and my stomach dropped. There at the far edge of the road, where the fog met the forest, the shadow stood again. Same shape, same stillness, just waiting. It wasn't coming closer now. It didn't need to, because as I stared at it, I realized it wasn't in front of the car anymore. It was behind me, standing in the road I'd already driven, watching me leave. I turned the key, foot pressing hard on the gas. The car lurched forward, tires spitting gravel into the mist. I didn't look back again, not once. But even as the fog swallowed the road behind me, I could feel it, that same heaviness pressing in from the dark, the way of something unseen, waiting where I'd stopped. And long after the forest disappeared behind me, the image stayed, that still, perfect silhouette, patient, silent, forever standing in the fog, as if it had been there long before I came, and would be there long after I was gone. The rain had stopped hours ago, but the forest still dripped. Tiny drops slid from every branch, sliding down the windshield like tears. The night was thick, no stars, no moon, just fog pressed against the glass. I'd pulled over to rest. Just a minute, I told myself. Just a breath before the road stretched on again. But the forest didn't rest. It leaned closer, listening. The branches above my car shifted in the wind, soft and restless. They brushed against the roof, a quiet scrape that came and went, gentle at first, like fingertips tracing a name. Then it came again, longer, deeper, SCRR, CHH. The sound caught, held. My pulse thudded once, a slow, hollow beat in my chest. It was just branches, I told myself, just the trees. But the noise began to repeat, slow, deliberate, almost patterned. SCRR, CHH, pause, SCRR, CHH. Each stroke sounded closer, lower, dragging across the metal as if searching for a way in. The fog outside glowed faintly from the dashboard light. It moved like breath, alive, breathing in rhythm with mine. I turned off the engine. The silence that followed felt thick, unnatural. No crickets, no wind, just the faint tick of cooling metal. Then the branches began again. But this time, there were shapes in the noise. Not random, not chaotic, almost like syllables, like something trying to form words. It scratched in soft bursts, rising and falling, until I could swear I heard it whisper through the glass. Something low, something almost human. It came again, a breathy scrape that curved and broke apart. Say me, Klaus. I froze. My breath stopped halfway through my throat. The air inside the car felt colder now, as though the fog had found a way in. It clung to my arms, damp and trembling. I leaned forward slowly, staring at the roof. Every sound felt heavier. A single branch slid down the side of the window. Its movement was too controlled, too slow. It trailed across the glass, curling at the edge like it was writing. Letters began to form in the condensation. I wiped the glass, but the streaks came back instantly. 4 thin marks, then 5. It wasn't spelling. It was counting. Something pressed lightly against the door. The metal flexed. A faint click sounded near the handle. I reached for the lock, but stopped halfway, because through the fog glass, I could see movement. Branches swayed, but there was no wind, each one bending, arching toward the car like hands. Their shapes blurred into silhouettes, thin, crooked, almost human in posture. And from above, the whispering grew louder, more insistent. Not words now, not counting, just the rhythm of something trying to be understood. I could feel it vibrating through the metal, through the seat, through my chest. The steering wheel was damp beneath my hands. The glass trembled softly against my breath. And then, just for a second, everything stopped. No scraping, no whisper, no movement, only silence. A silence so deep, it felt like the entire forest was holding its breath. Then, a single tap on the roof. Another, then another. Slow, deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. Each one closer to the window. I turned my head, and something moved outside. A shape, half hidden in the fog. The outline of a face pressed faintly against the glass. Its features were wrong. Too smooth, too pale. Its eyes open but hollow. And behind it, the branches moved again, wrapping around it, tugging it backward, like they were claiming what belonged to them. The shape dissolved into the fog, and the forest exhaled. The branches stilled. The whispering stopped. I sat there for a long time, waiting for the air to settle, waiting for my heartbeat to sound normal again. But even as the silence returned, I could still feel it, that faint vibration in the car frame, the ghost of that whisper, soft, persistent, patient, as if the forest hadn't really gone quiet. It was only waiting, listening, and somewhere out there in the tangle of black branches and mist, something would still try to speak my name. The cabin sits deep in the woods, where the trees grow too close, and the wind can't decide which way to move. It's late, past midnight, the kind of hour that feels hollow. I'd come here to be alone, to rest. But loneliness feels different in a place like this. It doesn't stay quiet. It breathes. The fire inside has gone dim. Only embers glow, painting the walls in soft orange that trembles with every flicker. Outside, the fog presses against the windows, thick, unmoving, like it's waiting to be let in. The cabin creaks every few minutes, timbers shifting, settling deeper into the damp soil. And somewhere between those tiny noises, I start to hear something else. A rhythm, a faint scrape against the glass. At first, I think it's a branch, or the wind, but then it stops, right when I notice it. Silence folds over the room again, heavy, cold, expectant. I look up, and that's when I see them. 2 pale yellow eyes in the cabin window, perfectly still, perfectly level with mine. The rest of the window is black, fog and night swallowing every edge, but those eyes hold their own light, not a reflection, not a trick, just steady, burning yellow. My body goes still, completely. The space between us feels smaller than it should, just a pane of glass, thin, fragile. The eyes don't blink. They just wait. The air inside turns colder. The faint warmth of the dying fire can't reach me now. Each breath comes out in a thin white cloud. I whisper softly, "Who's there?" Nothing moves. For a moment, I almost think I imagined it, that maybe it was a reflection, my own light caught wrong. But then they shift, not away, closer, just half an inch. Enough for my pulse to break rhythm. I stand, slowly. The floor creaks beneath my feet, and the eyes react. They tilt slightly as if listening. Something in that small movement feels too human, and not human at all. I take a step forward, then another. My hand trembles against the arm of the chair. I want to look away, but I can't. It's as if the cabin has narrowed, drawn me toward that faint yellow glow. Each step feels wrong. Too loud, too long. By the time I reach the window, the fire behind me has gone out completely. Only the pale light from those eyes remains. I reach out, my fingertips hovering just inches from the cold glass. And in that exact second, the eyes vanish. Not blink, not move away, just gone. The darkness outside swallows everything. I stare at my reflection now, a pale ghost hovering in the fog, with eyes that look nothing like mine. Silence returns, but it doesn't feel empty. It feels full, like something's holding its breath just beyond the walls. I listen, for footsteps, for breathing, for anything, nothing, and yet I can't shake the feeling that it's still there. Not outside, but somewhere closer. The wooden frame hums faintly, as if something heavy has brushed past it. The window fogs for my breath, and on that thin layer of mist, two small marks begin to form. Circles, like eyes. I stumble back. The chair behind me tips over, hitting the floor with a dull thud that sounds too final. The fog on the glass ripples, then clears. Only my reflection remains, but it doesn't move when I do. It lingers half a second longer, just long enough for me to see it smile. The kind of smile that doesn't belong to me. Too calm, too knowing. I turn away from the window, my heart pounding, the silence pressing in. I tell myself it's fine, just exhaustion, just tricks of the fog. But even as I lie down, eyes closed, the image won't fade. Those yellow eyes, burning faintly through the glass, waiting, and in that thin space between sleep and waking, I can almost feel them again, right where my reflection should be, watching, patient, as if they never left at all. The air tonight feels heavier than usual, colder, like the forest itself is holding its breath. I walk along the dirt road, the one that cuts through the valley, a narrow path framed by trees and endless mist. The headlights from my car fade behind me, swallowed whole by the fog. I tell myself it's only the season, that kind of chill that creeps in before dawn. But something about the way the fog moves feels wrong. It doesn't drift. It flows, like water being pulled towards something. Each step I take, the mist shifts beside me. It curls, folds on itself, then stretches again, like it's breathing. There's a faint hum in the air, low, almost like static pressed against my ears. I stop walking. The fog stops too. A pale shape hangs in the air in front of me. It doesn't dissolve with the breeze. It waits. My chest tightens. The night smells like wet leaves and old iron. Every breath feels thick, as if I'm breathing through someone else's lungs. I take a step back. The mist follows, not the whole fog, just a portion of it, breaking off from the rest like a living thing. It gathers near my knees, swirling faster, closing the distance I try to make. It shouldn't move like that. Fog doesn't follow. My heartbeat feels too loud now. I can hear it echoing in my ears, pulsing with every flicker of motion in that pale vapor. When I exhale, it rises, a faint stream from my mouth. But instead of fading, it merges with the mist ahead. And then I hear it. Whispers. Soft. Faint enough to make me question if they're real. They drift through the air like threads, sliding past my ear, curling behind my neck. I can't make out the words, but the tone is unmistakable, familiar, gentle, almost kind. It sounds like someone trying not to wake me. My hands start to tremble. The cold has sunk deeper than my skin now. The fog inches closer, spreading upward, pressing lightly against my coat, then my face. It's colder there, sharp, almost burning. Something brushes my cheek. Not wind, not water, something deliberate. I freeze. My eyes sting from the damp. And then I see it, shapes moving within the mist, faces flickering between the folds, gone before I can fully see them. They're watching me. I can feel it, that silent weight behind every breath. I whisper, "Who's there?" My voice doesn't echo. It vanishes instantly, like the fog has swallowed it whole. The whispers return, closer now, almost touching my ear. One of them sounds like my name. Soft, drawn out. The mist thickens until I can't see the ground. I turn, but the path is gone. Everything is white, endless. I start to walk again, no direction, just movement. But the fog moves with me, keeping pace, curling around my legs, pulling gently at my sleeves as if trying to guide me somewhere. The static grows louder. It hums beneath my skin. Each whisper melts into the next until it feels like 1,000 breaths overlapping. I can't tell where they're coming from. Above me? Behind me? Inside me? I stop, close my eyes. For a moment, there's nothing. No sound. No movement. Just a pulse. Steady, deep, somewhere in the mist. When I open my eyes again, it's standing in front of me. The fog has formed a shape. Tall. Human, almost. But too thin. Too pale. The face is featureless. Only a faint suggestion of eyes that never blink. It tilts its head, and the whispers fall silent. The world around me holds still. Even the air feels suspended. Then the figure bends forward until it's inches from my face. I feel its breath. Cold, moist, carrying the scent of soil and something long dead. It whispers something I can't understand, a word that vibrates through my bones. And then the fog breaks apart. The figure dissolves. The whispers scatter into the trees. I'm standing alone again on the empty road. The mist retreats, sliding back into the hills as if nothing ever moved at all. The silence that follows feels heavier than before, like the world has exhaled, but forgot to breathe back in. I walk toward the faint shape of my car ahead. My clothes damp, my breath still visible. But even now, as I reach the door, I can feel it. That cold thread of air brushing the back of my neck. A single whisper, too quiet to understand, but close enough to feel. It hasn't gone. It's just waiting for me to breathe again. The world is white tonight. Still, breathless. The snow lies untouched across the valley, a soft, endless blanket that swallows every sound. My boots sink deep with each step, the cold biting through the seams. The air tastes like metal, sharp, lonely. There's a faint wind, just enough to make the trees whisper. Bare branches clack together like old bones. And then I see them, footprints, not mine, fresh, leading from the open road into the forest ahead. At first, I think they belong to an animal, but they're too large. Each print stretches wider than my hand, the toes long, splayed, almost human, but not. They sink deep, as if whatever made them was heavy. Alive, close. For a moment, I stand there, watching my breath drift like smoke into the cold. The prints wait, trailing into the dark, where the trees lean close together, their shadows tangled and soft beneath the snow. I tell myself to turn back, but something in me wants to follow. It doesn't feel like choice. It feels like invitation. The first few steps are quiet, just a muffled crunch beneath my boots and the faint hum of wind through the pines. The prints stay steady, perfectly spaced, like the thing that made them never paused, never stumbled. The deeper I go, the thicker the trees become. The light fades, replaced by that faint gray glow that only comes from snow reflecting the night. I can't tell if it's dusk or dawn. Time feels distant here, frozen like the rest of it. A low creak drifts from somewhere ahead, with bending or something moving against it. The air feels wrong, too still, like the forest is holding something behind its breath. I kneel beside one of the prints. The edges are sharp, not softened by drift or wind. The highway was empty. No cars, no lights, just the soft hum of tires on cold asphalt. It was late, somewhere between midnight and whatever comes after that. The air outside looked heavy, thick with fog that curled in the beams of my headlights. The world felt like it was holding its breath. Pines lined both sides of the road, tall and unmoving, their tips vanishing into the mist. The kind of silence that presses against your ears, makes you aware of your own breathing. I remember adjusting the heater. The glass fog at the edges. The smell of frost and burnt dust drifted from vents. And then something moved. A shape, dark, Low to the ground at first, then upright. It crossed the road ahead of me. Slow and sure, its outline sharper than the fog around it. For a second, I thought it was a person. But it wasn't. It was taller, thinner, the kind of thin that shouldn't hold shape. It didn't run. It just glided. My hands tightened on the wheel. Instinct took over. I swerved hard to the left, tires shrieking against the frozen road. The car jerked sideways, headlights slicing through fog. Snow and gravel spat against the windshield. And when I looked back, it was gone. No figure, no footprints, just empty road. The line of fog folding on itself like nothing had ever been there. I sat there for a while, heart pounding. The world outside completely still again. The engine idled, a low hum that felt too loud for quiet around me. I kept watching the tree line, waiting for something to move again. Anything, but there was nothing. Only that strange pull, like eyes somewhere in the dark, watching me through the glass. It made the skin on my neck tighten, made every breath feel shallow. The fog shifted in small ways, slow circles like it was breathing. Each curl of mist looked like it was leaning closer. I told myself it was just nerves, a trick of light, a trick of fear. But I could feel it, a presence, something patient, unblinking. I rolled the window down a little, just to listen. The air outside was freezing, biting at my fingertips. And beneath the hum of the car, there was something else, a rhythm, soft, slow, like footsteps pacing along the edge of the road. They stopped whenever I looked. I whispered, "Hello?" My voice didn't sound like mine. It fell flat against the fog, as if swallowed. The silence the air was still tonight. Cold, the kind of cold that seeps through your sleeves and sits beneath your skin. The forest around me stood silent, trees rising like black ribs against the pale sky. The snow was thin here, patches of dirt showing through like bruises. I walked slowly, hands buried deep in my coat pockets, each step sinking with a soft crunch. My breath hung in front of me, thin and white, like a ghost that didn't want to stay. That's when I heard it, a hollow sound, distant, low, like something heavy striking an empty space. It came once, then again, and when I stopped, it stopped too. The silence after was thick. My heartbeat felt louder than it should have. I looked behind me, nothing but the narrow trail I'd made through the frost. I took another step. The echo answered, not quite a copy, more like a delay, as if something else had heard me and was trying to repeat what I did. The forest was wide, but the sound carried. It came from nowhere and everywhere at once. I knelt, pressing my gloved hand to the frozen ground. Even the earth seemed to hum, a faint vibration under my palm. When I stood again, the air had changed. It felt denser, closer. I whispered, "Hello?" The echo whispered it back. Almost right, but not quite. My voice thinner, wrong at the edges. I took a few steps forward, each one slower than the last. Branches creaked overhead. The hollow sound followed me, a beat behind, always answering. It wasn't just echoing my footsteps anymore. It was adding to them, a rhythm, a second set of movements that didn't belong to me. Every time I paused, it paused too. But once, just once, it didn't. One more hollow step came after I stopped. Soft. The road cuts through the forest like a thin scar. Narrow, unmarked, and too quiet for this hour. The trees on either side are tall and uneven, their bare limbs swaying in slow rhythm with the wind. A pale fog moved between them, soft as breath, thick enough to blur the edges of everything it touches. My headlights catch on the mist, spilling weak yellow light over the dirt road. It feels like driving through a dream, or through something that doesn't want to be seen. The heater hums low. The dashboard glows faintly orange. For a moment, there's only the steady thrum of the tires beneath me. Then movement, at the edge of the tree line. Something dark, something still. I slow down, lean forward. Two small points of light hover in the fog. Dull yellow, not reflections, not quite eyes, but close enough that my chest tightens. I blink. They vanish. The forest looks empty again, but it isn't. It feels full, like the air itself is crowded, like I'm being watched from all directions at once. I tell myself it's nothing. A trick of light, a deer, a branch, anything but what it feels like. The car moves again, rolling slow. My fingers grip the wheel tighter than they should. A flicker in the mirror. Another pair of eyes. Farther back this time. Then another, closer to the road. They don't shine like animal eyes. There's no flicker when I pass. They just stare. I glance away for half a second. When I look back, they've moved. Closer. Dozens now, all low to the ground, just beyond the reach of the light. Shapes begin to form around them. Not full bodies, just outlines. Long, uneven shadows that sway where the trees don't. I can feel their attention. A weight pressing against the glass. I whisper to myself, keep driving. The tires crunch over gravel. Branches claw at the side of the car. The fog thickens until I can barely see the hood. Every time I blink, the shapes shift. Every time I breathe, they take another step closer. I can almost hear them now. Not footsteps, just movement. The way air moves when something passes through it. The faint rustle of dry leaves turning over themselves. I reach for the radio, but stop halfway. The silence feels deliberate, fragile, like a thread I shouldn't break. I glance toward the forest again. The eyes are gone. All of them. For the first time, the road ahead looks clear, but something in the mirror catches my eye. Far behind me, a single pair of lights. Not headlights, not fireflies. Just two still, dim eyes watching for where the trees meet the fog. I turn my gaze back to the road. My breath catches. They're ahead of me now, closer than before. I hit the brakes. The car slides to a stop, gravel spraying into the mist. Nothing moves. Not the trees. Not the fog. Not even me. The eyes blink once. Slow. Heavy. And then they fade. One by one. Until the forest is nothing but pale silence again. I sit there a long time. Hands trembling against the wheel. The air feels thinner somehow. Emptier. Like something important just left. When I finally drive on, the fog parts in slow, careful ribbons. But the feeling stays. That weight. The fog was thicker tonight. Not drifting or soft, but heavy, like something alive pressing against the car. The headlights cut only a few feet ahead. Pale beams swallowed almost instantly. The road looked wet, but there was no rain. Only that strange shimmer, like the air itself was breathing. I slowed down. The tires hummed low beneath me, a steady rhythm against the silence. The clock on the dashboard flickered once. 1:17 a.m. The numbers looked dimmer than before. The forest on either side of the road had vanished into gray. No trees, no signs, just fog, layered, endless, closing in tighter with every mile. Then the road ended. It didn't bend. It didn't split. It just stopped. The yellow lines faded into nothing, swallowed whole by white air. I pressed the brakes, feeling the car tilt slightly forward. Beyond the hood, there was no ground, only fog, rolling, pulsing, as if it waited. I turned the wheel, slowly backing up, the gravel crunching beneath the tires. But when I looked behind me, there was nothing there either. No road, no forest, only that same shifting wall of gray. It felt wrong, like space itself had folded, like the world had quietly erased a way out. I tried to laugh, but it caught in my throat. The sound didn't echo. It just ended, as if the air refused to carry it. I turned the car around again, pressing the gas harder. The headlights cut the same few feet ahead, and there, the road reappeared. I felt relief for a second, but when I followed it, it curved sharply right and led straight back into fog. No matter how I turned, the same thing waited, a blankness that swallowed the path behind me. I checked my phone. No signal, no GPS, just a black screen that faintly reflected my face, distorted by the flicker of the dashboard light. The air in the car grew colder. The windshield fogged over from the inside, and when I wiped it away, I thought I saw something move in the mist ahead, a shape darker than the rest. Still, my hand hovered over the horn, but I didn't press it. The sound would have felt too loud, too final. The shape stayed there, long enough for me to notice that it didn't have edges. It just blended into the fog, like the fog itself was forming it. And then it moved. Not closer, not away, just sideways, sliding soundlessly across where the road used to be. I blinked. It was gone. The silence that followed was unbearable. Every small sound in the car felt like it belonged to someone else. The tick of the heater, the faint creak of leather beneath my hands. I tried driving again, slower this time, watching the road, watching the mirrors, but they all showed the same thing. Fog, infinite, thick enough to make the world feel flat. The hum of the engine began to fade, like the air itself was absorbing it. It didn't sound distant, it sounded muted. I rolled the window down an inch. Cold air slipped in, carrying a smell I couldn't name. Something dry, old, like dust from a place that hadn't been touched in years. For a moment, I thought I heard breathing outside. Slow, measured, matching mine, but not mine. I shut the window. The fog pressed closer to the glass now, like it wanted to see inside. My reflection looked pale, blurred, a ghostly smear surrounded by gray. I drove until I couldn't tell if I was moving forward or in circles. Every turn looked the same. Every mile felt identical. And the farther I went, the fainter the hum of the car became, until it was gone entirely. The world felt quiet, completely still. No engine, no breath, no sound at all. The dashboard lights dimmed once more, then faded. The car sat in silence, surrounded by endless fog. The forest was brighter than it should have been. The moon hung low, round and swollen, casting pale light across the clearing. Frost clung to the grass like glass dust. Each breath left a soft cloud in front of me, vanishing as quickly as it formed. The trees stood still tonight. No wind, no movement, just that faint, silver glow spreading across the ground like something watching from above. For a while, I thought I was alone. Then I heard it, a howl, long rising, so deep it felt like it came from the ground itself. It cut through the quiet, shaking the cold air around me. Not close, but not far either. My first thought was wolves. But something about it wasn't right. It didn't echo like it should have. It lingered, stretching into the trees until it felt like the whole forest was breathing with it. I held my breath, listening. The silence that followed was thick, alive with tiny sounds. The faint rustle of branches, the crack of frost breaking beneath something heavy. Then came another howl, closer, sharper, and then more. 3, maybe 4 voices, rising and falling together like a chorus of something ancient. The moonlight caught movement across the clearing. Shapes, black against the silver. Tall, wrong. They didn't walk. They loped, too long in the legs, too deliberate in the way they moved. Each time they passed through the light, I could see the shimmer of fur, the arch of a spine, and something that didn't belong on any animal I knew. Their heads were low, their bodies massive. But what froze me was the way they moved together. Perfect rhythm, like one thing split into many. I crouched behind a fallen. It was just past midnight. The kind of night where everything feels too still. The air was cool, damp, carrying the smell of moss and old bark. The forest around me was pale under the thin moonlight, each trunk rising like a column of quiet. I stopped walking when I noticed it. The leaves were moving, not shaking from wind, but pulsing, in and out, as if the whole forest was breathing. I stood there, watching branches sway in perfect rhythm of my own chest. I exhaled slowly. They did too. A low hum moved through the trees, soft, like a throat clearing in the dark. The air thickened. I could feel it pressing against my face, warm and alive. For a moment, I thought it was just a breeze. But there was no breeze, not a whisper, not a single sound, but that quiet, steady inhale and the faint tremble of leaves following along. Every time I took a breath, the forest did the same. When I held it, so did everything else. The silence that followed felt like waiting, listening. Something unseen was matching me. My throat tightened. I tried to step back, but the ground beneath my boots felt softer than before, like the soil had shifted. Roots curled just beneath the surface, moving slightly as though stretching in sleep. I turned my flashlight toward the nearest tree. The bark was slick, shining like wet skin. Steam rose faintly where the beam touched, as if the tree itself was warm. and then a sound, a low, drawn-out breath, so close it stirred my hair. I froze. It wasn't from behind me. It came from the trees. All of them. Every branch bent inward, creaking like ribs expanding. Every leaf trembled, pulling toward the center of the forest as if something enormous was waking up. The rhythm grew stronger. The ground pulsed beneath my feet, a slow heartbeat echoing through the roots. I tried to breathe quietly, to stop the pattern. But the moment I held my breath, the forest went still, dead silent. No movement, no sound. Even the hum vanished. I waited. Seconds stretched too long. Then, a sharp inhale, deep and ragged, tore through the branches. The trees moved closer. Leaves brushed my shoulders like hands. The air trembled, and I realized it wasn't copying me anymore. It was breathing for me. Every inhale dragged air from my lungs. Every exhale left me empty. The forest was feeding off each breath I tried to take. I stumbled backward, clutching my chest. The ground rose unevenly, as if the roots beneath were shifting, trying to keep me there. I ran. Branches clawed at my arms, catching on my jacket, pulling me toward the dark. Behind me, the forest breathed faster, shallow, hungry. I didn't look back, not until the trees thinned and the cold night air finally broke through. When I turned, the forest was still again. The leaves hung quiet, the trunks unmoving, but the air still felt wrong. Each time I inhaled, I could hear something faint, deep in the distance, a slow, drawn-out sigh, like the forest was still breathing with me, waiting for me to return. The fog had been following me for hours, thick, heavy, rolling between the trees like something alive. The night was cold, the kind that numbs your fingers even through your sleeves. Each breath left a faint ghost in front of me, fading into gray air before I could take another. I stayed on the path, though I couldn't see where it ended. The world had shrunk to a small circle of damp earth, surrounded by nothing but shifting white. Somewhere beyond it, a branch cracked, soft, deliberate. I stopped walking. The fog swirled in front of me, and for a moment I thought I saw movement, a darker patch within the pale. I blinked. It was gone, but the quiet that followed felt wrong, too complete, like everything was holding its breath. Then I saw it, a shape, standing just beyond the edge of what my eyes could hold. Still, almost human. Its skin caught the moonlight, so pale it looked like bone under glass. It didn't move, didn't hide, just watched. The fog drifted between us, breaking and mending around its outline. I took a slow step forward, and it tilted its head, slightly, as if curious. That tiny motion froze me. Something in the way it moved felt wrong. Too smooth, too patient. Its face was bare but not blank. It looked at me the way a person studies something they don't understand. Calm, silent, unblinking. I whispered into the air, a small, shaky breath of words I didn't really mean to speak. "Who are you?" The fog swallowed my voice whole, but I saw its mouth move, just a little, not to speak, to breathe. The pale figure inhaled, deep, slow, and as it did, the air around me grew colder. I could see my breath being drawn forward, pulled toward it, like the fog itself was feeding on the space between us. I stepped back. It didn't follow. It only tilted its head the other way. That same quiet curiosity. I could hear something faint now, beneath the silence. A low hum, like air vibrating through hollow wood. It came from everywhere at once, inside the fog, beneath the ground, in the small space between my ribs. The figure shifted. Its arm rose slowly, and for a moment I thought it was pointing at me, but it wasn't. It was pointing past me. Behind me, I turned. The fog was thick again, pressing close. No path, no trees, just white. When I looked back, the figure was closer, not by much, just enough to notice. My chest tightened. I couldn't tell if it was breathing faster, or if I was. Every instinct screamed to run, but the air was too heavy, too still. The figure tilted its head once more, then took a single step forward. The movement made no sound. Its feet didn't disturb the earth. The fog clung to its legs like fabric. I took another step back. My heel hit something solid, a root or maybe a rock. It didn't matter, because when I blinked again, it was gone. The fog hung open where it had been. Empty. I waited. Seconds. Minutes. Long enough for my pulse to slow. Then I saw it again, farther off this time, half hidden between the trees. Watching. Not closer. Not chasing. Just waiting. Its head tilted again, like it understood something I didn't. Then the fog thickened, swallowing its outline piece by piece, until there was nothing left. I stood alone in the quiet. The hum was gone, the world still. But when I finally turned to leave, the air felt different, as if something unseen was walking behind me, matching my steps, matching my breath. And when I glanced over my shoulder one last time, I saw a pale shape, just at the edge of the fog, still watching, still calm. And this time, I didn't move. It was late, the kind of late where the forest feels older than time. The air was still, cold enough to sting the inside of my nose when I breathed in. The trees stretched tall around me, black silhouettes rising into a sky that didn't quite have a color anymore. Only gray, and deeper gray. Somewhere ahead, a light. It blinked once. Then again, like a candle trying to stay alive in the wind. I stopped walking. It shouldn't have been there. There were no houses this deep into the woods. No roads. No reason. But the way it flickered, soft, steady, inviting, pulled at me. I told myself I'd only get close enough to see what it was. The ground was damp, mud sticking to my boots. Every step felt too loud. Branches brushed against my sleeves, tracing thin, cold lines across my skin. The light blinked again, farther this time, or maybe smaller. It was hard to tell through the fog weaving between the trees. I kept moving. My breath fell into a rhythm, slow, quiet, shallow. The forest breathed with me. For a moment, I thought I could hear it hum, like a soft pulse beneath the dirt. Alive, listening. The light flickered again. Closer now. So close I could almost see the shape behind it. It swayed, gentle and patient, as if waiting for me to catch up. Then it went out. The darkness came so quickly it felt like a wave. I froze, eyes wide, heart pressing hard against my ribs. I waited. Maybe it would come back. Maybe it was just behind the fog. Nothing. The silence grew heavy. Even the wind had stopped moving through the branches. I turned slowly, expecting to see the trail behind me, but there wasn't one, just trees, and shadows between them. Something shifted. Far off, a faint rustle like someone. The forest opened suddenly. A wide clearing, swallowed in pale mist. The air was colder here, thin, still, as if the trees were holding their breath. I stepped forward, the damp earth soft beneath my boots. Moonlight spilled weakly across the grass, painting everything silver and hollow. That's when I saw it. At first, it didn't move. A shape, massive, dark against the lighter fog. It stood where the mist was thickest, like a mountain that had wandered into the woods. My chest tightened. I tried to tell myself it was a fallen tree, a boulder maybe, something explainable. But it wasn't. It was standing, too tall, too still, too heavy to belong here. The wind shifted slightly, and I felt a deep tremor in the ground beneath my feet. Subtle, but steady, as if the earth itself was breathing. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. Then it came again, slow, drawn out, like the exhale of something enormous. The trees swayed, not from wind, from pressure. The fog thinned just enough for me to see its outline. Long arms, or maybe they were shadows stretching outward. A body that shimmered faintly in the moonlight, as if the air around it bent and struggled to hold its shape. It didn't make a sound. No growl. No movement. Just presence. The highway had emptied hours ago. No headlights. No movement. Just a faint hum of my engine and the fog pressing against the windshield. I pulled over when the lines on the road started to blur. Too tired to keep going. Too quiet to feel safe. The trees on both sides leaned close, their branches knotting together like ribs around a sleeping heart. I turned off the engine. The silence that followed felt heavier than I expected. Inside the car, my breath fogged the glass. The dashboard ticked softly as the heat faded. It was cold enough that I could feel the air moving through tiny gaps in the door. Thin, dry, steady. Then a tap, sharp, precise, right against the window beside me. I didn't move. At first, I thought maybe something had fallen from the trees. A twig, maybe an acorn. But then it came again. Tap, pause, tap, measured, intentional, like someone waiting for me to look. I turned my head slowly. Nothing, just fog beyond a glass, white dense, shifting in small, slow spirals. I stared until my eyes began to sting. Nothing moved. I told myself to stop imagining things. It was late. My mind was tired. The forest was full of noises I didn't understand. But then, another tap, lower this time, near the bottom edge of the glass. And again, same rhythm, same patience. The kind of patience that knows you'll eventually look again. I reached for the door lock. The click felt too loud. The kind of sound that tells something outside exactly where you are. I leaned closer, trying to see through the fog. My reflection swam across the glass. Pale, wide-eyed, distorted. Behind it, something darker shifted. Just a flicker, a shape leaning away. I blinked hard. The fog pressed closer, like it wanted to see in. The forest had gone completely still. No wind, no insects, only the faint ringing in my ears and the pulse in my throat. Then a rustle, not loud, not quick, slow, like fabric brushing against the car door. I whispered to myself, "Don't look." But I did. Nothing, only the faint impression of something tall and wrong fading into mist at the edge of the headlights. I waited. Minutes, maybe longer. My breath grew shallow, hands gripping the steering wheel even though the keys weren't in ignition. And then the final tap. This one came from the opposite window. A mirror tap. Same rhythm, same patience. Whatever it was, it had moved. Quietly. I couldn't see it, but I knew it was still there, waiting. I reached for the keys, fingers trembling. The metal slipped once before I caught again. The car started on the third try, the lights cutting to the fog in thick white beams. For a moment, I thought I saw movement, something long, slender, stepping back just beyond the reach of light. I didn't stay to find out. The tires spun on wet dirt before catching, and I drove, faster than I should have, through turns that felt unfamiliar. The fog swallowed everything behind me, even the tapping. When I finally stopped miles later, the windows were covered in condensation. I wiped one with my sleeve. Faint lines streaked the outside of the glass. Not scratches, not dirt, just lines. For long, curved marks drawn slowly, as if a fingertip had followed me all along the way. The forest was quiet again. Too quiet. I kept my eyes forward and drove until the fog was gone. It was colder than usual that night. Late autumn, the kind of cold that settles in your bones and stays there. I had stopped on the trail, somewhere between the ridge and the old creek bed. My flashlight flickered every few seconds, its beam barely cutting through the fog. I don't even remember why I went out there. Maybe I wanted to see how far the path went. Maybe I just didn't want to go home. The forest around me was quiet. No wind, no insects, only the faint crunch of frost beneath my boots. I could hear my breath, thin, uneven, echoing in the stillness. Then something changed. It started with pressure, a weight in the air, like the forest itself was holding its breath. I slowed down, turned off the flashlight for a moment. The darkness pressed closer, and I could feel every inch of it. That's when I heard it. A growl, low, long. It rolled through the trees like a whisper made of thunder. It wasn't an animal sound. It was deliberate, like someone trying to form words through clenched teeth. My first instinct was to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The growl came again, closer this time, and then it said my name. Not a shout, not even loud, just a slow exhale buried inside that growl. My name. I froze. Every part of me. The sound didn't echo. It was too close for that. It came from right behind me. I turned slowly, my breath catching halfway through. Nothing, just fog shifting between the trees. I whisper my own name under my breath, as if to test it. to make sure I hadn't imagined it. But the forest swallowed the word like it didn't belong there. My flashlight flickered back on, the beam trembling in my shaking hand. The light hit the trees.